Section 2, Flexible Environment and Learning Culture. Remember the video watching norms we discussed in Section 1? Pause, rewind or watch the video as many times as you wish. Complete the Flipping Your Classroom workbook as you go through the presentation. Pause the presentation to allow time for you to respond to questions in your workbook and to write any questions you may have throughout the duration of the presentation. First, we want to discuss the flexible environment. By the end of this section, you should be able to identify the three components of a flexible environment. Describe what a flexible environment looks like, describe what good learning looks like, and explain how assessment can change in a flexible environment. There are three basic components of a flexible environment: space, pedagogy, and assessment. Space refers to the physical learning space. How well does the space function for students and teachers? In a traditional classroom, the needs of the teacher are most important. As you flip your classroom, the needs of the learner must also be taken into account when designing spaces. Pedagogy refers to the ways in which learners get the information they need. In a traditional classroom, the focus is on the delivery of content. In a flipped environment, the focus is on interactivity and engagement. Assessment becomes essential in a flipped environment in order to identify focus areas for growth. Frequent assessments are necessary. Moving application to the time in the classroom allows teachers to focus on assessing skills, strategies, and processes rather than content. Students are assessed at the more rigorous depths of knowledge. A truly flipped classroom changes from a classroom to a learning space. Changing the room can be a powerful tool in changing thought from a teaching-centered classroom to a learner-centered space. The space must meet the needs of all the students, and it may change as needs change. There really is no longer a front of the room, as the students are interacting with each other and with the teacher. If you can do nothing else, at least put seats in groups. As your flipped classroom progresses, however, you may find that that's not enough. Think about ways that you can meet the needs of your learners in your space. We've talked a lot about what good teaching looks like, but what does good learning look like? Students are able to learn at their own pace with guidance. Collaboration between students is important. It may look chaotic and it may be noisy, but even though students are talking, they'll be talking about content. Let's be honest, we've been doing school wrong. We've been teaching the lower level thinking skills in the classroom and expecting students to complete the higher level thinking skills at home. With this being said, many students may not have anyone at home to help them if they didn't understand something or got stuck. Flipping the classroom allows the lower level thinking skills, remembering and understanding, to be done at home. Higher level thinking skills, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating, to be done in the classroom, where the teacher is there to help and guide students to a better and deeper understanding of the concept. Teachers in a flipped classroom use frequent and formal assessments to make sure that learners are progressing as expected and to redirect learning as needed. Teachers of flipped classrooms also realize that, as students do not all learn at the same pace, they can show mastery of learning in different ways as well. One way to accommodate this is to offer options of assessments. Tell students to prove that they've learned a concept. By being flexible with assessments, it allows the teacher to assess for deeper learning. Use digital tools to flip assessment. This video shows how a document camera can be used to flip the writing workshop.
So I'd like us to look at this article right here about ISTE. From the ISTE magazine, I should say. And this could easily be an exercise in trying to figure out how to grade papers. So you could be grading papers. I'm just writing on this. This could be a student paper right here. I could say, right here, ultra high speed might be, it's well said. I mean, I could do grammar discussions, or I could, kind of highlight this. So this is just taking the same process. So if I flip assessment here, I could take this right here. I am using this doc camera that the folks at RecordX have given me. So RecordX That's what this camera is, and I'm using it and kind of giving it a test run. And I think what's powerful about this is that I can also bring my face into the conversation. Because one thing that I have said, and frankly Aaron Sams, of course, as well, we've been saying that education is intensely kind of a social contract with people. And since it's a social contract with our students, the fact that they could see my face as I evaluate, say, a piece of work in some kind of a writing assessment could be very powerful. And so this cool device does both. It records my webcam from my computer, where you can see my face right now. But then I've also got access to a document camera where I can highlight things. I might want to grab a marker or something like that. Maybe I want to highlight something with a marker so it's easier to see, or whatever. You get the idea, is that this could be any piece of paper down here that I could be underlining things, or I could be editing a document, or I could just be making comments. So, a teacher has to grade the paper anyway, don't they? And so if they're going to grade the paper, they may as well record the session, and they can provide the video for the student. This process, I just unboxed the Recordex. I set up a couple of things, and I pushed the record button. It's really been that easy.
Pause the video and reflect on the following question in your workbook. What can you do to change your classroom into a learning space? Also, feel free to answer the questions that are associated with flexible environment. Creating a culture of learning rather than a culture of teaching takes time. It is hard for some students, as it is for some teachers. Students who already play the game of school well don't want to change the rules. Even students who like flipped learning need time to adjust. Implementing the 80-20 rule, where 80% of class time is taken up with student engagement and 20% is teacher-directed. In a flipped classroom, more time is spent applying concepts than listening to the teacher explain them. Use rubrics to establish and guide norms and procedures. If students know up front that part of their grade comes directly from whether or not they followed the rules, they are more likely to follow them. You cannot have a culture of learning without good relationships with students. Use the time you have with students to identify strengths and needs of students. As students are working in a class to apply concepts they learned the night before, walk around and ask pointed questions to identify any misconceptions about the material. This kind of formative assessment helps to identify where individual students need the most help. The only way to do this is to talk to every student in every class every day. If you're not standing up at the front of the classroom lecturing, you have time to do this. A culture of learning needs an environment where students can express their needs, opinions, and ideas. Otherwise, students will shut down and no longer give them. Model what a culture of learning looks like. This could come from you, students from other classes, or students within your classes. If you want students to take ownership of their learning, have them teach in some way. Let them be the expert and have others come to them for help. For example, in biology, instead of dissecting a frog and filling out a worksheet, have students create a manual for dissection. Have students create content videos for next year, but make sure you have parental permission. This gives students a purpose for learning. Use collaborative learning. This teaches skills that are vital in the real world. Listening to others, giving and getting respect, and being able to discuss and debate without attacking people or ideas. Pause and reflect on the following question. How can you help students take ownership of their learning in your classroom? Post your response in your workbook, along with answering the remaining questions in Section 2. You may watch the next video or take a break and continue at a later time.